So the word satsang means, it's a Sanskrit word, like most of the yoga words are, and it's two words in essence, sat and sang. Sat means truth. So we might know that from one of our, those who studied a little bit about yoga philosophy, and we work on the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, and you've got the 8 limbs of yoga, and one of the yamas and niyamas are the first 2 limbs of yoga, which are about, in essence, the ethics and the guidelines in which we live our lives. And satya comes from the word also sat, which is truthfulness. So the idea to be truthful when we're out in the world, when we're being honest and real, in essence, speaking your truth. And so we know that, we often know that word, some of us who've, as I said, have studied the 8 limbs of yoga, satya. But sat itself just is the essence, just means truth. And satsang, sang is the word for, that means sangha. So sangha is what we are here, is a community, is a like-minded souls, I guess, gathered together. So it means that a collection of like-minded people gathered together who are curious or interested in the truth. And so we're here to discuss and talk about the truth. And the truth, from the yogi perspective, is the essence of who we are. So in essence, it's the non-dual reality. But we get very caught up in the dual reality. And in the yoga tradition, in the yoga philosophy, we would say that actually the dual reality is just Maya. Maya is the word for the manifest world that we operate in and that we function in with our minds and our bodies and everything that we identify with. But it's actually just a dream. It's not real. This world that we're operating in is an illusion. It's a pretty solid illusion in the sense that we can feel pretty confident in this body and this mind. But from the ultimate non-dual perspective, it is just a dream, and it's like we sometimes dream within a dream. When we go to sleep in this dual reality, we go to sleep and we have a dream in our sleep. We dream in our sleep, and when you dream in your sleep, you're convinced it's real, aren't you? When you're dreaming in your sleep, you're convinced that's it. And so you can have all the terrors and the delights and all the possible dual experiences. And then you wake up in the morning and you go, oh, thank God, or what a pity, or whatever. But it was just a dream. It was just a dream. And so, in a sense, when we awaken into the non-dual awareness, into the self-realized state, from my understanding, because I'm not awakened in that state, but from my understanding is that you wake up, in a sense, to realize, I've just been dreaming this whole time in this dual so-called reality, this dual play. And so I guess from that point of view of like when you wake up from, let's say, a bad dream and in duality, and you think, thank God it's just a dream, that could have been a terrible thing if that was really happening in real life. And then I think it's probably a similar thing in the non-dual state. You wake up going, thank God that life is just a dream. And they told it to us in the nursery rhymes back when we were very young. You know? Merrily, 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 life is but a dream.
Giveaways.
So there's
and it's down the stream, so you go with the flow.
That's right. That's
So
right.
yeah, row your boat, do the work. Gently down the stream.
Yeah.
Merrily, merrily, live with joy. Life is but a dream.
Never understood that nursery verb until today.
And the work is yoga practice.
Yep, we're taking sign-ups for the next retreat. Anyway, that's an introduction to our satsang. But I want to see if anyone has any questions at all before I go off into a tangent, as I often do.
Good tangent.
Yeah, good tangents.
What's the meaning when you said about the dreams? Because as people would say, dreams can become reality or dream. There's a meaning behind a dream.
Well, our teacher Clive often says that in Advaita Vedanta, non-dual philosophy, they actually don't mean anything in that particular, that it's just the screen. It's just like anything else that we view from our mind, it's just a reflection of the mind. But he also acknowledges that there are some traditions that believe in, they interpret dreams into all sorts of things, but from non-dual philosophy there's no point to it. It's just the mind.
The mind,
Maybe just coming up with something from the day or...
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you can interpret things, of course, and obviously whatever comes up in a dream within this dream, then you can find meaning in it for sure if you're called to do that, because obviously in the dream state we're in the subconscious mind is at play. Because the conscious mind, or the mind operating through the five senses, is not functioning. It's asleep in a sense. But the subconscious is at play. So the subconscious brings up all your stuff that you've stashed away, all the stuff that you've maybe had experiences with but haven't really faced or worked out. So all that will arise within the dream. So for sure, I think you can definitely find meanings in dreams.
Less filters, is that right? You're saying almost less filters if everything else is
no
shut down.
filters at all.
Yeah, it's unfiltered and it's
But not. I think what Cadia is saying really is not to get hung up on that. We can get very caught up in, we better interpret our dreams and
make meaning out of them.
Make meaning out of it, but which is not necessary. If that's something that calls you, I think, and if you want to, you can. There's nothing wrong with it. But as far as the spiritual aim, I guess, the spiritual work goes, then it's not particularly important. It wouldn't place much importance on that. It's really about waking up from this dream is the important thing.
Don't sleep too long.
Has he ever spoken about things like lucid dreaming or sleep paralysis or any of those sort of altered states that...
I haven't heard him speak of that. He kind of steers away from dreams, and he suggests that, when we wake up in the morning time or wherever through the day, if you are remembering a dream, everything is just witnessed because it's arising in the present moment, the eternal here now. So it's we just witness it in the moment.
I find it very true. Some people always say the dreams predict the future, but when we look back, the dreams that we had is only indicating the time
from that
how
time.
we
Yeah.
felt,
In that moment.
not really the
Relevant.
future. We're reflecting our own mind. It's like this dream,
Yeah.
how we interpret that. That's what's the meaning is.
Yeah. Good insight.
Absolutely. That's right. But not to, if it calls, I think it's interesting also, lucid dreaming and because in a sense, lucid dreaming is kind of, you could say, in a way, I don't know what Clive would say about this, but you could say that lucid dreaming is, in a sense, practice for awakening, because the lucid dream is waking up within the dream. So it's realizing that you're dreaming within a dream, and that's what our aim is in this dream, to realize that we're in this dream state. Something like that. So maybe it is a useful practice. It's not one that Clive shares, but then again, there's not absolute that only what Clive shares is the formula. And he says that too. It's like there's various different pathways always to the top of the mountain, and so you choose the pathway. You're called to certain paths, but I guess the beauty of sharing what Clive shares is that we know there's the potential result that we're looking for, because he's the putting in the proof, and not just him. He's had quite a few of his students also awakening beyond the mind. So it's he suggests that the cocktail that he shares, which is essentially what we are sharing, as far as this practice of yoga, with the self-inquiry added in, very important, is that it's like a fast track cocktail. Because many traditions, with all due respect of working various practices or modalities, or even religions, you could say, or whatnot, are often very kind of slow. It's like almost like you've got to do this for your whole life, and then maybe a few more lives. A lot of like Buddhist traditions will actually say, well, it's usually a few lives before you awaken, and with that idea that you're going to reincarnate, which is likely, but also we don't really know what happens once we die. So really, the best thing is to consider that we want to wake up in this lifetime, not wait for another one. Here and now.
You were just talking about having to do 2 lifetimes before this may happen. Can this happen without doing the work?
Yes.
This awakening?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So
essentially, it's the work that we do is like Clive suggests. It's the fast track. Gives you the greater potential for the awakening, but the ultimately awakening is due to grace. Grace.
Okay.
Grace is the wild card, which can happen any time. So awakening, like full awakening beyond the mind, can happen any time. We need to be careful, even about what is this awakening, because a lot of people,
How does he describe it?
there's even this whole kind of woke thing going on now, just because you realise that the government's no good and the vaccines were no good, or whatever the woke thing is, it doesn't mean that you're actually awakening beyond the mind. And it's good to be more aware of what's happening in society and all the rest, but what we're talking about is self-realization. So self-realization is not just a little shift in I mean, it is in a sense, but it's a big shift. I think, from my understanding, it's stepping through the crack. Clive describes it as stepping through the crack. Or you step off the subway and the doors close behind you and boom, that's it, you're never going back. There's no return from this paradigm that you enter. Yeah, so we can have moments of tasting, and in fact, this is the thing, we all have these moments all the time, and the more we are aware of these moments, the more we kind of realize that, oh, that's a moment, a non-dual moment. So a non-dual moment is the moment where the persona disappears. So the persona that we built up through the ego has constructed this personal idea, which is also a personal illusion of me and my life. And the ego's constructed this from the age of around about 2 or whatever. It started constructing this persona, because we all come into life in an awakened state in a sense, but because we've had no experience yet within that birth, then there's no way to share or express that or recognize it. And then so as soon as we start to become more aware, then the ego kicks in and creates, the ego mind creates the persona of me. So it's, the kid at 2 years old, you take away its teddy bear and the kid's, no, that's mine. That's kind of like the moment when the ego really kicks in and becomes
False, is it?
Identified, or
well, identifies with this idea of me. It's the idea. Me is just an idea.
Belief.
It's an idea which it gets solidified over years of then society, parents, school, friends, everything constructing, helping to deepen this construction of this illusion of a persona. A persona means someone having a personal life. The non-dual reality is totally impersonal. Nothing personal about the non-dual reality. So in essence, we are all impersonal consciousness. Consciousness is impersonal. Nothing personal about it. But we identify with this kind of bubble that we've sort of created around us, has created this persona of, or the various things that I like and I don't like, and I'm good at this and not good at that, and I have hang-ups about this, but I'm love that, and this is all just the construction of the ego, creating the persona which we then identify with. That's me and my life. So the awakening of non-dual awakening is the disidentification, I guess, could you say that? Unidentifying yourself with your persona and shifting the identity to the impersonal consciousness, which is...
Does he think in vibration then, or in, I don't know, frequency or
well,
something?
no, the thoughts, like within the impersonal reality, there is the witnessing happens. So the witnessing happens from the impersonal reality. Impersonal consciousness is what witnesses. So when we keep talking about, witnessing awareness, witness your thoughts, witness your emotions, witness what's coming up in your mind, we're encouraging you to shift into the impersonal consciousness, Not that you actually have to shift into it, you're always at anyway. But where our minds keep us locked in this separation, in this identity of the personal, so that we don't realise that we are the impersonal consciousness. We think we are a person operating in an individual way. So from the awakened state, it's not that you don't have any thoughts or emotions anymore. The thoughts and emotions still arise because you're still having a human experience, or consciousness, impersonal consciousness. Impersonal consciousness is experiencing itself through all the expressions of nature. So nature, through the flowers, the trees, the birds, the bees, the mountains, the rivers, everything in nature, the animals and the human experience is all just happening. Consciousness is just manifesting these experiences, and the gift we have though with the human birth within consciousness is in a sense we have the opportunity with the human experience as consciousness to witness itself, to realize itself. So, am I saying that right? Yeah?
We're not going to know anyway.
So from the awakened state, you're still having a human experience. So the thoughts.
Like ecstasy or something all the time, or you've just got that, the floodgates.
Well, that can be a thing, and I think that it depends again, in a sense, on everyone's.
I guess the way Clyde describes it is that it's kind of like he's engaged with life, but not so affected by it. So if there's a happy moment is experienced and
very present.
Without attachment. And then if not so happy experience also happens, it's one and the same. So it's like then that is also just
quite neutral.
Yeah, I think there's no. Would you say that that's what he would kind of suggest? That
Absolutely.
That it's but there is
binding.
But there is a deep sense of him moving through life in a very effortless way, with an undercurrent of feeling home in oneself or something like that.
I think feeling
So
home is key.
Contentment. They talk about this word contentment a lot in yoga.
Santosha. And feeling at home is key in a sense, because this feeling of being home is the longing that we all have. We all have a longing to be home, and we try to create our own physical homes in the best way we can to satisfy that longing, but somehow it never gets satisfied, no matter how beautiful or how large or how funky we build our physical homes.
And we do that with people, with each taste, with each experience.
It's never fully satisfied. There's always something missing, and what's missing is coming home to the eternal now, into the infinite awareness. But what you're talking about as far as the bliss states, so this is, from my understanding, this is more something where we would say this is where the yoga, like the 8 limbs of yoga, talk about reaching a samadhi state, a state of bliss. And so we can all experience that too. Sometimes we can experience that. I mean, I know I do in some of my pranayama meditations, or even times with experiences in plant medicine.
There was a moment in meditation this morning where everyone was silent. No one was moving, no one was snoring, no one was it was just this moment.
A stillness.
And it was like, that was amazing. Yeah, it was really cool.
So it's a little taste of samadhi.
And it's kind of like that moment before the mind comes in to say, wow. It's the moment when you're resting.
Does that mean Clive wouldn't experience suffering anymore?
That's correct. Only he experiences in the moment, like a sad moment or whatever.
Like it doesn't last.
But nothing that lasts. Yeah, nothing
It
that.
almost sounds like quite like a bit of a challenging state to be in if you were living in like a
Today's world.
yeah, just like modern society, work, kids, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, he does suggest that it took him a while to settle into it, and but it's only in the moment. And then it passes, I guess.
But absolutely, and that's why many traditions have this tradition of renunciation. Like a lot of spiritual traditions, like if you head up into the Himalaya and hang out, as Clive said, he hung out with a lot of Tibetan Buddhists up in Tibet and places like that, and a lot of them were fully awake, but they were also they didn't have the trouble of dealing with the world. You know, they just in their monastery sitting doing the meditation, their prayer wheels, and it's a great life. If you call to that, if you want to renounce the world, then that's absolutely an option. But for Clive, and
he also suggests for anybody to live in the world.
For many of us, then we're called to live in the world, which is in a sense it's the tantric taste to these teachings, because we're talking about the non-dual truth, which is from the yogic perspective Advaita Vedanta. Advaita Vedanta is the non-dual tradition of the yogic path. But also some of the Zen Buddhist and some of the Tibetan Buddhist traditions are also that kind of same more or less as Advaita Vedanta, just a different language or different interpretation. But there's often that sense of just renouncing the world, because what's the point of getting involved with the world where we can just kind of sit now in the beautiful just spaciousness and not have to, in a sense, even deal with the world. But the tantric is different. A tantric is someone who's called to live in the world. So tantra, we get the misinterpretation of tantra these days that it's a sexual yoga. It's not. I mean, there is an aspect of that there can be, like as in the tantric is someone who wants to live in the world and experience the delights of nature. So having a sexual experience is a delight, and so that's why there's been this, the Westerners go, we can take that bit and make that our yoga. But actually, Tantra is right now, right here, just delighting in the magnificence of these flowers and how beautiful they are. These incredible gifts of Mother Nature. So through my senses, so usually the idea with Tantra is that through your senses, you are delighting in the divinity that is being expressed in Mother Nature in all facets. So it can be, with a lover, but it can also be just in delighting in nature and all the things, really.
When you said when you do some meditations and that you find yourself in a state of bliss, that's still part of the dual world.
Exactly. Well, that's what Clive says, is that you need to be mindful that, because some yoga traditions even would just say, samadhi's the pinnacle. As soon as you reach bliss states and you got to a point where you're like, bliss in bliss, feeling ecstasy, then you feel that maybe you've reached the pinnacle of yoga. But Clive would say, no, it's not the pinnacle, because after those bliss states you come back down, and then the mind's still there, just banging on about me and my life just as much as it was before. So he would say that not to get too caught up or lost in those bliss states, in your samadhis, not to say that it's not a delightful experience to have from that tantric perspective. Again, we're enjoying the delights of the experience of being human, whether it's, in our samadhi state and, with our lover, with the flowers, or eating some delightful food, or whatever the delight is in the moment. But
that's not the end goal.
That's not the end goal. The end goal is realizing the truth, the awakening to non-dual awareness beyond the mind.
That's when you don't go up and down.
That's
kind
right.
of just reached.
Yeah, that's when you shift the identity from the persona, from the personal to the impersonal.
And it's kind of like when the child stepped out of the picture, it's like stepping back in to where you came from.
Yeah, so when the child becomes, the ego mind constructs this persona, there's a sense of separating yourself from the picture of nature. And in fact, we're always looking around thinking that we're separate from everything we see and experience, which is me looking at this and that. But from the non-dual perspective, you shift back into your non-dual awareness, where you are consciousness, which is at one with all that there is. So it's that oneness aspect.
But you can recognize it, because when we were babies, we didn't know it. That's what he says. So you have the maturity or something to recognize it.
That's why babies can be so cosmic in that way, right?
Yeah.
They have no idea.
No.
That they're
separate.
No. Yeah.
Animals.
They have no care in the world, I mean, just a natural inclination to cry if they're hungry, or if they're uncomfortable or whatever, or tired. But otherwise, they're just in this kind of blissful state. Because that's the other thing, and back to the bliss. I mean, the non-dual state is a blissful state. Just naturally, it is blissful. It's kind of we can't describe it. This is the thing. We can only allude to it, but the suggestion is it's a spacious, still, but also just delightful, blissful place.
I guess if you're quite neutral and nothing impacts you, Does that make sense?
Does Advaita ever believe in past lives and then reincarnation?
It wouldn't. I mean, it wouldn't give much importance to that, because, it might suggest that it could happen.
Yeah.
But it's like getting caught up in something that's not.
Exactly.
Not what?
Here and now.
Here and now, not.
Or if it is, it's just witnessed in the here now.
Do you believe in consciousness before birth, as a fetus or in the womb?
Not sure, Platon spoke about that. But I'm sure that, they would suggest that we have consciousness in the womb. What do you think that we do?
I'm not sure.
Hard to say.
Can you tell me more about Clive?
More shall be revealed.
Special guest.
Well, Clive's our teacher, and his story is basically that he was quite young, I think, when he was called to go to India, so in his early 20s. He's now 77. 77, same age as my mum.
He's looking good.
Looking good for 77. But he was called to go to India in his early 20s, so back in the 70s. He went to India and basically embraced yoga, and he went on his spiritual path, his spiritual journey, I guess. And so for many years, for decades. He was living mostly in India. He'd live on average 9 months of the year in India, and then he'd pop over back to Europe for 3 months just to keep kind of grounded. He said otherwise he would have just got completely lost in India. And so he'd go back to Europe and just, realize back in this matrix, I guess, and then also, I guess, to teach a little bit and earn a bit of money so he could then go back and survive in India. But he was just deeply called to follow his spiritual path, and so his path was exploring yoga, meditation, and his practice was very much on the asana, pranayama, meditation and self-inquiry. He didn't really fully study, let's say, Advaita Vedanta till later, till he found his guru actually, but he somehow just naturally was, he read it somewhere that it's interesting to observe our tendencies and observe the mind and shift into the witnessing
like a
awareness.
Buddhist way of just ignoring, familiarising yourself with ignoring the mind or something.
Yeah, so his self-inquiry was happening in the process of doing a deep sadhana, deep practice, and because of his very strong, particularly pranayama practice, and this real kind of glorification in a sense through a lot of the yoga traditions of Kundalini awakening as being the pinnacle of yoga. He was, I guess, called upon that journey, that path, and one day he fully had a full Kundalini awakening, which is not the same as what many people say, had a little Kundalini something, or my Kundalini, but we can all have little Kundalini shifts and little tickles of our Kundalini energy, but a full Kundalini awakening is very, very rare actually. It's even rarer than the full awakening beyond the mind. Even though the full awakening beyond the mind is the greatest pinnacle in a sense, it's more likely that all of us here would awaken beyond the mind before we would have a full Kundalini awakening. Just because awakening beyond the mind is up to grace again. I mean, they're both up to grace in a sense, but
the body doesn't need so much preparation. Maybe.
Yeah, Kundalini awakening really needs a strong sadhana practice. Awakening beyond the mind is witnessing awareness can get you there in a sense, but full Kundalini awakening needs you need to be doing what we're doing here, this kind of practice all the time. A good hour and a half of pranayama meditation every day, plus your asana, plus all the rest. So for most people, that is unlikely. You really need to be called.
How does it look like this?
Kundalini awakening?
Yes.
So Kundalini awakening, from my understanding, it can look different for everyone. Like everyone has their own, I guess, experience or taste of it. But the idea of the Kundalini awakening, so in essence, what's happened is when Kundalini is in essence the creative life force that's within us. So it's a creative life force that happened at our conception. So when the sperm met the egg in our mother's womb, uterus, then what happened then? There was a conception happened, and that moment of conception, the energetic blueprint of that moment of creation, the Big Bang within the womb, exactly.
That's one way to
The Big Bang before, the Big Bang that moment became the blueprint or the the essence of your Kundalini retains the blueprint of that Big Bang, of that moment. So that is then stored as the fetus begins to develop and the spine begins to grow. That the energetic essence of that is stored at the base of the fetus. Now that becomes then stored at the base chakras as it develops more and more. So the base chakra then retains this blueprint of your creation. So it's an energetic blueprint which has an immense power. It's the essence of what we call Shakti. Shakti is the power of what manifests in the material world. And so we all retain that power, that essence, in the base of our spines at the Muladhara chakra. So the base chakra holds the Kundalini essence. And so for most of us, though, it just remains as an essence. By and by, there is, I guess, from my understanding, there is still it still feeds us some kind of creative energy. So when we have these creative moments of creative sparks of ideas or, being moved to do something really creative, a piece of music like the Beethovens and the Picassos, it's their Kundalini energy which sparks a creative thought to write a piece of music or to create a beautiful painting. It's all sparked from this creative essence within us, from our Kundalini. And so for most, though, it might just have the occasional spark. But the potential there is to awaken it to its full potential. And so that means a force that is very extremely creative and powerful. Now, this kind of force, it's like, for this force to awaken, it's also a much higher vibrational field. And because it moves through the energetic system, the pranamaya kosha. So the pranamaya kosha is our blueprint of our physical body. So annamaya kosha, the bones and the flesh and everything else. Pranamaya kosha is the energetic body, which is where all the nadis, the chakras, or meridians lie. So this is what we work with as a therapist, acupuncture, and all the rest, to move the energy within this field of this network of nadis. And these are channels. These nadis are channels, and they're channels of energy. So they are the blueprint of all that we are and all that we do in a sense in the manifest world. So when we're called to move the arm, there is an energetic movement, prana, moving the arm, and the mind as well, even though we're not thinking about it so much, it's unconscious, but there is this force that helps to create the movement, and the force is the certain way in which the prana moves through our system, through the energetic channels, which then move the physical arm as well. And so we've all got that. It's all working through us just naturally without having to do anything at all. But the potential is to it's almost like, when you go to the gym and you build your muscles, if you work hard at building your muscles, you can get big muscles and you can get stronger physically. And we can do the same with these energetic channels. We can strengthen these nadis. We can make these, because they're kind of like, in a sense, they're like little tubes. It's like the nervous system. Nervous system is, in essence, the physical counterpart of this energetic sheath. But we can strengthen these tubes so that more prana can move through, and higher vibrational quality of prana can move through. So it's like upgrading. It's in essence, we are electrical beings. So we have energy moving through us, which is the same as electricity that we know in a house. And if you think about in a house, when you have different voltage systems, you've got a 12 volt or 24 volt or 244 volt system. And each different system requires different type of wiring to be able to hold that particular voltage of energy. And so this is the same within our system of our nadis. We're just wired up to hold the minimal voltage, just if we're not doing anything. Minimal voltage works through us. If we want to wire ourselves up to have the higher voltage, then we have to build that up like the same way we go to the gym. And so the practice is what we're doing here in the morning. All this pranayama is working to raise the voltage of your electrical system. And so only once the voltage, because if Kundalini has a full awakening, so to speak, and your system is not wired up to hold that voltage, that power, then it'll blow a fuse. And you'll go crazy, potentially die, incredible pain, whatever. It's going to be a not so good scenario. But the
hospitals filled with Kundalini awakening.
Well, potentially some people who end up in mental asylums, Clive suggests that they could have had a premature Kundalini awakening. But usually, generally speaking, because anything can happen anytime, there's always the potential for anything to happen. It's very unusual, unlikely that Kundalini will awaken to its full potential because there is an intelligence within this energy. And so within that intelligence, it can realize, in a sense, that the system's not ready to hold it to its great potential, so it won't move, it won't awaken. But if it realizes, okay, this body's ready to hold me now, then with a little bit of grace, it can awaken. And so the awakening, from my understanding, is that it's a magnificent, electrifying, amplifying, enlightening experience, kind of like maybe, like a psychedelic trip 10 times fold, but without any hangovers or any...
And he also suggested it connected him to nature much more. He felt a deeper connection with nature.
Yeah, fully, it kind of gives him... In essence, it opens all the chakras. So I guess when it gets to the third eye, it's like third eye awakening allows you to see clearly, so you can really see that we are connected to nature, see the prana moving through nature, see the actual nadis and the chakras, glowing bright within us. That kind of almost like a 3D, X-ray vision in a sense, and going off into bliss states of samadhi. He would be sitting there for literally hours, just in absolute bliss. He tells us the story of his friend Vishu says, go and get a chai, and he goes, takes him to get a chai, and then he sits down and suddenly, boom, he's in bliss for hours and hours, just like in this bliss state, and then afterwards, when he comes back, he says, oh, that chai, is it arrived yet? But that's Clive's experience. So Clive talks very highly of the Kundalini awakening, saying it's a wonderful experience, a wonderful gift. But then he also realized after some time, because it awakens and it moves through you for some time, for some months or years, that you're in these kind of states of bliss, where then it becomes a little bit difficult to operate in the world, because you might, if you were, let's say, going to work and then suddenly blissing out, it could be a bit tricky to he says that a lot of people
Talk to
really
the boss about that one.
struggle with that, but for him it wasn't a problem because he was just roaming about in India, so he was just blissing out in the temples and and all the people go, oh look, you know, this guy's.
Did he experience? Did he see other people having that situation in front of him?
He doesn't talk much about it. Or he's with Tracy.
But during that period of his life, I think he was very solo, right? He was just doing his own kind of thing.
Yeah, and then, but he had, what I'm getting to, he then had a realization, you know, maybe some time after the Kundalini awakening, still with this sense of, there's something more. This is not it. There's still something more. You know, just this sense of he still wasn't home. He was having these incredible, magnificent experiences, but there was still this longing to be home, which he wasn't at. And that's when he met his guru, his teacher, who then kind of blasted him with Advaita Vedanta, and told him about the non-dual truth and non-dual awareness. And so that inspired him to deepen his practice of self-inquiry, which then, a couple of years later, then one day when he was sitting up on a rooftop, with his friend, same friend, this one friend, his friend was called Bishu, and Bishu was like, sort of his buddy in a lot of these journeys. He was always with him. He was with him with the Kundalini awakening. He was one who was getting him the chai. And then he was with him for his full awakening beyond the mind, when they were sitting up on a rooftop in Puri, a place called Puri, and they were looking out across. There was these palms and the full moon was up. It was a full moon night, and he was just observing the full moon, eyes wide open. And then in a moment, he just had this experience which he can't really explain. It's like the non-dual awareness state is a state. So we've got to realize what we're talking about here is what self-realization is realizing the self, which is the non-dual awareness, which is beyond the mind. So it's a place or an experience. It's not an experience. It's a reality. It's the reality of who we are and consciousness. But it's the mind arises from within consciousness, but consciousness itself cannot be fully understood or even explained in a sense. We can't fully talk about it because it's way beyond the capacity of the mind to understand it. It's beyond the mind, so we can't describe it or try to understand it or talk about it with our minds, which is what we do and what we're doing right now.
Is it like a state where the illusion falls? And it's a place without illusions?
Yeah, it's like, I guess they describe it like a clearer seeing of things. And Clive suggests that like our emotions and our mind are kind of like coverings that cover up this. So when there's kind of like a deeper healing of all of our conditionings, and as kids how we kind of then form into this identity, once all of that has fallen away, then it's kind of revealed. Something like that, maybe? Yeah.
Was he aware of what was happening as it was happening?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was it was like, Bishu.
Yeah. He explained it like that. He said,
Bishu.
I've gone beyond the mind.
Everything is arising within me.
And he prefers that state?
Oh, there's no going back.
Yeah.
And
but
yeah.
he says he
Nobody
said he would never trade it for anything.
Great.
And the other thing he says also, he describes that there's a maturing over the years, because initially it can be a bit kind of hard to navigate it, a bit disconcerting in a sense. And so for him it was actually a little bit difficult the first few years. in the non-dual state. But now he's, after some years, he finally kind of settled into it, and he says it's maturing over the years, and it just gets more and more delightful all the time.
What's he like to be around?
He's a really cosmic kind of guy. He's similar to Mickey, actually. But maybe a bit older and a bit more.
A bit wiser.
Yeah, I feel like you're both pretty wise. He likes to go
On the
dance
roof.
parties and
People shopping.
Now that's the thing. Like with the awakened state, we tend to think that that you're going to that you let go of the ego, all the contracted qualities of the ego, and you're disidentifying yourself with the persona, so you're identifying with the impersonal consciousness, but yet you still retain the delightful qualities that you've
unique essence.
that you've expressed as who you are in the world. So Clive's still a very sparkly, kind of fun guy with cracks lots of jokes and likes the boogie, likes to dance, likes to go to a party.
Loves nature.
Yeah.
How old was he?
40-something.
40-something.
Maybe 40.
Wait, does he have a partner?
He did for many years.
For many years, just recently they separated.
But they're still living on the same property.
They're still great friends.
Was his partner awakened as well? Or?
Does it rub off?
It's infectious.
Should have a
Big shit.
hard to say.
I'm not
But
100%
I'm
sure.
not 100%.
She doesn't share it.
Yeah,
so.
she doesn't share it if she is.
What Clive suggests, even if you do step beyond the crack and reach this place, is that you probably shouldn't be sharing it, not to begin with, because you need to take your time to settle into it. He said, people who have shared it from the outgo, such as Eckhart Tolle and Muji, these are some of the self-realized masters. But look, he says, gosh, I wouldn't want to be in their shoes. They've got a whole domain of stuff that they've got to be involved with all the time, which is, to some degree effortless, because in the awakened state things are effortless, but yet they're heavily involved in the world, having to, deal with thousands and thousands of people all the time.
So Clive just does his thing in the forest.
So Clive prefers to keep it low key. He
Just has an email
he's
address.
he's happy to share with those who are really called to this path, and so he runs retreats like we are in essence. I was inspired initially by Clive, and when I first went to a retreat of his, which was about 15, 16 years ago, something like that, when I first discovered Clive, and I went to one of his retreats, and I was like, no, that's my teacher, that's my guru, you could say, he's my master, he's totally inspired me. And one of the things that really drew me to Clive's way was his kind of tantric approach as well, in the sense that I'd been studying yoga in certain sort of traditions, which can be quite kind of restrictive in a sense. You can do this, you can't do that. You must, know this and know that, and and then suddenly seeing Clive, and actually, these other people saying you can and can't do this, all seem very constricted in their minds, and then seeing Clive fully awake, fully in the oneness, and just do whatever the hell you like, enjoy life. This is what we're here for. We're here to enjoy this birth. Mindfully, don't go around hurting people in the process or yourself, but life is here to be enjoyed.
He's always
delight
asking
him.
Mickey about which festivals are coming up.
Clive came to Earth Frequency a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
and he was boogieing with us at Earth Frequency Festival.
But he lives like, he doesn't live in a monastery or anything.
No, he's got his
He's been
own.
to festivals.
Oh no, he would run a mile from a monastery. If you told him, Clive, you got to go to a monastery, then run away. Exactly.
He's
He's got his own little house in up in Wilson's Creek, near Mullumbimby.
where he planted a lot of trees on his property.
He's created a little paradise. It's beautiful.
So you know how you said once you've gone beyond the mind, there's no going back.
Mm.
So you know how we do yoga and you don't practice for a while, it goes down, and you have to.
Yeah.
So is that similar, or is it like no return policy? Like it's-
No return policy.
No
Absolutely.
return policy.
So that is
Probably want to return it anyway.
that is
It's done.
Highly unlikely.
that's one thing that he shares actually, that when he had his full awakening, it was like then all the practice actually dropped away. All the asana, the pranayama, it was almost like, what's the point anymore? You know, I'm in this non-dual awareness.
So that was the real difference.
Maybe he did a little bit of asana just to keep the body
Yeah.
healthy, but there was no calling to practice so much anymore.
So is everything he does now just to attain his physical body?
Pretty much.
Yeah, he
To
said he
keep
got to a
healthy.
point where actually it's almost like you pick up the tools to then help others. So then he just started doing it again to then
To be able to inspire
inspire
others.
others.
Mm.
So he's not really doing it to
Because
get
he,
anywhere.
For his own benefit,
yeah, I mean, in essence, he
Work was done.
did
Yeah.
everything that you could possibly achieve, in the sense, to have the Kundalini awakening,
Go beyond
and
the
then
mind.
going beyond the mind
Done.
into
He must have done something good in his
non-dual
past life.
Well, he would deny that, probably.
Excuse me. When you say the Kundalini awakening,
So,
say the Kundalini awakening,
yeah.
there's other awakenings.
Well,
But
yes,
the way
that's
the
what
mind
that's
was
what
talking about, yeah.
there is in essence the awakening of Kundalini, which is an awakening of Shakti energy, of this, this great power, in a sense, this great potential of creative power, but it's still a dualistic awakening. It's like, even though within that dualistic experience you could still have glimpses of the non-dual truth within the dualistic experience of that awakening, but it's an awakening of power that moves through us, and it's an experience of sorts. Whereas self-realization, which is awakening beyond the mind, is the non-dual awakening, which is not dualistic. So it's the pinnacle. That's awakening to the full truth. So
The book I was reading, it talked about 4 stages of awakening. Said, say stage 1, for instance, describe something I'm going through.
Mhm.
Does that mean that you go to the next stage?
No, I didn't
As-
quite, yeah.
So whatever you're experiencing is the stage. You know?
but it's a good point actually, because we've been talking about this a little bit,
Yeah.
and still trying to figure that out, to be honest. Because Clive talks about, it's, when it happens, it's stepping through the crack, and it's just like a moment of like boom, and
You're
that's
there.
it. There's nothing more to do.
Yeah.
You've stepped through, and the awakening's done.
But do you actually
But in certain, like even in Advaita Vedanta, they do talk about, there are kind of stages to some degree, because it's like the first stage is to, first of all, I guess, to recognize the illusion of the mind, in a sense, to be able to just recognize that. But because there's still a lot of those constrictive qualities are still playing out, then you're not fully in the awakened state. So there needs to be a dissolution of all of that. So that's, in a sense, the stages, if we're going to talk about stages, is that all these constrictive qualities need to be fully dissolved for the full awakening to.
But he's even talking about fine-tuning it and stuff, so that feels like it's almost even stages within it.
Well, he talks about a ripening, a maturity of it, yes. And yeah, I mean, can we say that's a stage too? I don't know. I'm not
Can
sure.
he just activate it when he wants to?
Well, no, he's there all the time. There's nothing more to activate. So, with the Kundalini, yes, that is something that can be activated.
Oh, he can activate that.
Well, he doesn't. He doesn't anymore. The Kundalini's gone for him.
Yeah, but he can't actually. It just happens spontaneously.
But yes, Kundalini generally happens spontaneously, but it is like activated in a sense, but not. Yeah, but it can be. You can do the practice to inspire the awakening, to activate it, but there's no guarantee as to when it's activated.
He knows he's got it and it's there. Can he just...
But with the non-dual awakening, there's nothing to be activated. You're just there all the time. So it's nowhere more to go. Exactly.
So how do you know you're there?
You know.
You know when you know.
He says
You
you
know.
don't need anybody He says you just it's like a recognition, because we were all born into it, so we carry this knowing of it
Within us.
and so that you don't need anybody to qualify it for you. Like, you don't need to go to Clive and be like, Clive, is this it? Like,
But this happens with both the Kundalini awakening and the.
I would say so. Do you think?
Would you say that?
Yeah, but what I was saying before, that some people have a little Kundalini movement and they might think that they've had a Kundalini awakening. Yet it's not really the full Kundalini awakening.
I'd love to see a documentary on that with interviews from people who've actually experienced it.
Yeah,
You know, that would be
I wonder if there's one on Netflix. Or it's not there.
Nikki, you know what I found interesting, because this morning I experienced something when we were doing the breath up and down, and you mentioned something, and you spoke into the fact that your capacity to do that, don't pass out.
The hyperventilation?
Yes, that word. Now, I've experienced a lot of anxiety and had panic attacks in the past, and so breath is something that I have to work with all the time, but if it gets too much, it almost activates that feeling, am I going to have a panic attack, am I going to pass out? So what happened was my ears went funny and I had to stop. Yeah, but does that mean then there's obviously channels that are blocked in part of something?
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
Or you're just recognizing that that's your
Limit.
limit.
Yeah, but why am I limited?
And
Why?
well, we're all limited. We're all limited.
Yeah,
But the limit shifts if we keep at it.
Yeah.
So it's this is a dualistic practice in a sense, and within that dualistic practice, everything can arise and subside. So our limits can shift as far as we practice, we grow the capacity to hold more prana, to hold more of that energy. So you're working both on that energetic level, also on a physical level.
It was just I was so aware that I knew that I couldn't.
Yeah, but that's why I always like to mention that, because it is a powerful practice. It's actually a very powerful practice.
Yeah.
And if you're not practicing regularly as well.
Yeah.
And what I share is and I kind of, even this morning I did a pretty deep practice in a sense, thinking that there's a lot of you here who have done a lot of this work, so I'm thinking, let's just go with the full practice this morning. But normally I'm a bit careful about sharing to that potential, this practice, because I know of its power to really kick in those nadis. And so that's why I always mention that disclaimer to, just really be mindful. Just listen to your body, listen to your energy, and don't push it. And so I'll keep saying that. So tomorrow morning, same thing. As soon as you start feeling uncomfortable in any way, just step back, don't push it. Yeah. But keep practicing it, and it becomes a delightful practice. I do it every morning, and I just sit on my cushion, and I'm in a bit of bliss, pranically intoxicated, just get into these really nice kind of mini samadhis, really. It's delightful. But I've worked up to that. My system's able to hold that, so I can sit like that for quite some time, and it feels great.
There's a 5:30. Just 5 o'clock.
Yeah. Well.
I was going to say that the tapping method.
Yeah, I'm just conscious of not
was
being
really
able
good
to
for
say.
because my daughter lived in Japan, and during COVID, see her when I did, and she had sort of a panic attack. Was really worried about stuff, and she called me up and I was on the video call with her, and I said, stop, get up. And we did that practice.
Oh my gosh, great.
And she said, that's unbelievable. She says, I'm okay.
Oh.
I'm okay. And she says, just do that. And yeah, so that really helped with work. So
Dad of the year.
I just do it every time.
Yeah, great. Well, yeah, I mean, it's not just a tool to get pranically intoxicated.
Yeah.
It's actually, they're all tools to help us move through, our challenges living in the world.
Yeah, she didn't want to do
Helps to.
She didn't?
No, she just said, happy you're talking shit.
Before she did it.
Yeah, before she
Oh
did it.
my
And I said,
God.
just follow.
Did you do it together?
Yeah, because it was on video call, so I did it with her, so she could see what I was up to.
Is she still doing it? Has she maintained it?
No. It was a moment thing.
One moment, she got over that thing and
Yeah.
stuff.
Until the next phone call.
Yeah,
Like, do everything again.
And it reminds me of my 6-year-old too.
Yeah.
He gets all worked up, and I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
can you calm down? How do I do that?
Yeah.
So we'll sit down and breathe together, and it works. Just take some deep breaths, and then it bit my behind because I got worked up, and he's like, "Mom, just take some deep breaths."
Well, maybe we'll cap it on that. It's a good little chat. Unless there are any other pressing questions.
I'm just curious, what about people that actually don't have the ability to follow the path of doing pranayama and yoga? Like, do they simply rely on grace to awaken, or like, do you know what I mean?
Self-inquiry
Like,
all the time. So
What was that?
Self-inquiry is and that
Yeah.
Clive says we have to pay attention to our minds every moment of every waking day.
Yeah.
So it happens all the time without practice.
Yeah.
Of like you're just witnessing, acknowledging, familiarising yourself with all of your internal dialogue until it subsides, which moves the veils.
But what Clive says is that the majority of the human population don't wake up. 99.9% or whatever it is, don't wake up.
What do you mean, don't wake up?
Don't become self-realised.
So when we say like we have those shifts of consciousness, is it more people have a greater awareness, that's what's shifting, or more people are awakened, if that makes sense?
Are you talking about like the yugas?
Yeah.
Well, both to some degree, yeah. But yeah, I mean the idea of those yugas is in the golden age and the Satya Yuga, then probably a majority of the population is fully realised, self-realised.
But it's a good thing to do to pay attention to your mind anyway.
Yeah. So, but that on that question, I guess if you're called on this path, and you know you're all called to some degree, just the fact that you're here. I mean, you know, probably most of you will just go home and say, oh, whatever. Nikki said, I'm going to get back to, you know,
until you
back
get
to
the
work
next
and
email.
Yeah.
But winter retreat. Oh, maybe
but there's probably a percentage of us who will awaken, I would say, in this lifetime. Whereas, you know, going just to the local bar or club down the street, probably, you know, a smaller percentage, let's say. I don't know. Like, there needs to be a calling first, generally speaking. So I would say that even people who awaken who haven't done the practice, you know, just people like Eckhart Tolle or whatever, there still would have been some kind of inquiry into the nature of reality, into the nature. So often it can be from a place of despair. So that was his experience, from my understanding, is that he was in a real despairing place, suicidal, and thinking he wanted to end life because, you know, it's just not worth living anymore. But from that place of despair, I guess there was an inquiry going, you know, why is life like this? Why is it so much suffering, or whatever it was? That was his inquiry, in a sense, that he was given the grace to awaken. Not that we should then all go into despair with the you know, the hope to then awaken. You have a better opportunity to do it through the practice of yoga and self-inquiry, now that you've discovered this wonderful practice. But if you're not called, most people don't even consider this as a thing. They're just completely caught up in the illusion of me and my life. And you know, there's not even a consideration. So most of those people will not awaken, sadly. And it's just the way it is.
Over the time, right now, yoga has been very accessible for everyone. But the world become very global, so it's no longer
far away.
Yeah,
meaning everybody has access to it.
Yeah. So does it mean there's more percentage of people going to become enlightened and awakened?
Well, yes and no. I mean, this is what Christina was talking about, the yugas. But that's a whole other ball game. I don't want to go into that right now. Maybe tomorrow. Yugas are the cycles of consciousness on a global scale. Cycles of time. So looking at, you know, the cycles of time, if we looked at it from the Western perspective, you know, the age of Pisces, the age of Aquarius, all these ages over a 24,000 year period, where there's an evolution and a devolution of consciousness in a cyclical fashion. So on the height of that evolutionary consciousness, global consciousness, then there would be more percentage of people awakened. So where we are now, according to some of these theories in this big grand cycle of consciousness, is we're kind of right at the bottom, maybe just a little bit out of the bottom towards going back upwards, but we're pretty low in the big scale of things. So this is why we're all kind of, you know, with blinkers on, me and my life, and stuck in the complete illusion of the personal reality. But Clive also says that these Kali Yuga times are the times where there is the greatest potential to awaken because of the general low vibration that's happening. It's almost like, you know, Mother Nature's like come on. Yeah, there's a bit more grace available. Whereas maybe in the height, you know, you're gonna be
not
fully.
so much grace around here.
You're gonna be
There's too many awakened people.
Something like that.
It's actually a good tool though to tackle mental health without people going to doctors and getting prescribed medication for life and in a cycle, that they can actually divert onto more of a positive way of self-handling the issues.
And also identify it in our mind.
Yeah, because it's all minds obviously there too. It's like, yeah.
And if we're not mind,
You're looking at me like
Some opportunities, there's definitely opportunities today. Yeah.
So we'll wrap it up there for our satsang.
That dinner smells good.
We're still a little while off. 20 minutes. We're going to sing some songs.
So, as part of this part of the tradition of, I guess, Tantra, there's also this aspect of Bhakti Yoga, which is the yoga of devotion, which Clive also mentions as, you know, one of the tools or one of the elements of the cocktail of the practice. So it's the devotion to the delights of being alive. So the devotion to the magnificence of nature, so often expressed from a traditional perspective. So a lot of these practices developed, of course, in India. So there's a strong sort of lineages and traditions there. And so the Bhakti tradition is the devotion to the gods or goddesses, even more so, because the goddesses are the energetic expression of nature. So nature comes into being, and all the magnificence, like these beautiful flowers, this little arrangement we have here, all the creative elements, all the beauty in nature is Mother Nature expressing this divinity. So Bhakti Yoga is the devotion to the divinity within all of nature. So it's like a recognition of the divinity and an absolute just joy in receiving and witnessing and experiencing this divinity. So on a side note then, kirtan becomes like so a lot of bhaktis like to sing this devotion, sing this praise of beauty that surrounds us all, that nature is there, gifting us each and every moment through all the magnificence that you've been experiencing today, this weekend, out in the beautiful field that we have here in Maitrika. So that's why sometimes we sing. So singing is also a creative expression. It's a way for us to joyfully express, creatively express. And so that's why we like to bring in a little bit of kirtan into the circle as an expression of that divinity. Sure.
Maybe we'll have a quick